Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams with Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all how to do a very, I hesitate to call it beginner because in this project I'll be teaching you techniques that I use every day, but it is a kind of beginner level in that it doesn't take a lot of experience or tools or materials to accomplish. So let's get started. This project, you can see, we're going to be using 18 gauge dead soft copper core wire. This is Parawire brand, and these are the different material or tools we'll be using. Round nose pliers, flush cutters, nylon jaw pliers, flat nose pliers, and bent nose pliers. There will be links to all of the tools and materials for this project down in the video description, but also this is a great example of one of the projects that is sometimes included in my $10 wire wrapping patron prize package. So again, if you're interested in getting kits of materials sent to you every month, please check me out on Patreon. There's links down in the video description below, but we'll get more to that later. So what I'm going to start off by doing is I'm just going to work off the spool, which what that means is I'm not going to be cutting the wire that I'm using off of the spool. I'm just going to leave it attached. And here I have 3 10mm very pretty Swarovski crystal beads. I have 6 bead caps that I like the way that they fit my crystals. And also you want to make sure that your beads and bead caps will fit onto the wire very easily because you don't want to shatter the crystals. I have 4 little, slightly over an inch long Celtic knot components. You could use gear beads, you could use, whatever you like. You can also make an entire bracelet just out of the bead links that I'm going to be showing you how to make. I also have 4 little jump rings here that I'm going to use to attach a clasp to, and I'm actually going to be showing y'all how to make your own clasp. So I'm going to start by taking, this is my wire, I'm going to use my nylon jaw pliers to grip it like this and just pull it on through, and that can remove some of the bumpy texture that comes from it being just on the spool. And oops, I'm going to see if I can't zoom in just a bit here. I'm going to thread one of my bead caps onto my wire, and you can see they kind of flop around funny until they get a bead in them. Sorry, I'm working through the camera, like I'm watching what I'm doing through the camera instead of just looking directly at it, so I apologize if my depth perception makes things kind of complicated. So you can see here the way that these bead caps will be sitting when they're on the bead, and I'm going to thread all 3 of my beads up like this. And this is a project that Randy and I recently actually just made a whole bunch of to make inventory for in the booth, because sometimes people just want something cute and little to wear. They don't want to spend well, sometimes people want to buy one of our more expensive bracelets, but sometimes they just want something for $10, and that's where these come in for Randy and I. We like to have some inventory for in the $10 to $15 price range, but these are so pretty. Like, I love Swarovski crystals. You can also use gemstone beads or just whatever you have. Just make sure that you like the way that the bead caps sit and fit onto them. So now I'm going to come in with my bent nose, words are hard, with my flat nose pliers. They're called that because the nose of them are flat. And I'm going to come about, that's 1 width, it's 2 widths of my pliers in from the end. I just kind of gauge it that way it helps me stay more consistent. And I'm going to do a 90-degree bend. Just like that. And you can see, it actually made an imprint on my finger. I give quite a bit of pressure from the back side, and that helps me, I feel like, get a sharper bend in the wire. And I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers. And on these ones, you can actually see where I've filed in a little notch into the nose of the pliers, and that's where I like to line up. And now I'm just kind of curling it around. I'm actually going to zoom out on this one so that you can see my hand motion. So I started by grabbing it and curling it in, and now that it's like this, I'm going to reinsert and bring it down kind of the rest of the way. And I've closed that loop. Let me zoom back in for you. So that's our little loop. And you want it to sit like a balloon, not like a letter P. And what I mean by that is that the stem here lines up with the center line. This isn't tilted one way over to one side or the other. And now I'm going to slide all of my beads, well, this component of a cap, a bead, and a cap, in this way until it's nice and flush. And I don't recommend doing this for with wire that's thinner than 18 gauge, like 20 gauge even. Sometimes I feel like it's too thin, because especially if a bracelet like gets snagged or something. Much thinner than the 18 gauge, and you're going to want to do a wrapped loop, which we'll cover in a different tutorial. So I have my beads all snug up nice to each other. I'm going to butt my pliers up against it. Sorry for all the little gnats and stuff. Again, I've got the window open, so we've got all kinds of bugs coming into the bright lights. And I'm going to bend 90 degrees. So you can see kind of how that happened. And now I'm going to use my wire snips to around 1 centimeter from where the bend is to where the wire snips are. And snip, just like that. And now I'm going to take my round nose pliers again, and I'm bracing with my thumb right here as well as my finger, oops, and throwing it on the ground. And you want to grip as close to the tip of the wire with your pliers as you can. And I'm just wrenching it around. Again, it's the same like vroom vroom motion with my hand. And that's as far as I got on one rotation. So don't hesitate to remove your pliers and then kind of bring it back, you know. And now from here, you can actually take your bent nose pliers or, you know, your flat nose, just whatever you have on hand. And you can wiggle that ring closed. So there's one. I'm going to demonstrate this same technique twice more. This one I'm going to do a little zoomed out. Bringing towards myself, again, around 1 centimeter in length. Coil this in. And I actually like to use the box jaw of my pliers to just flatten that down to make sure it's all in the same plane. Thread these beads up. Now you can see the opening is on this side. So I'm actually going to bend the wire in that direction because I like for it to sit like an S. Because I feel like that gives it a little bit more structural integrity than if it's sitting like a C. I don't know why I feel that way, that's just the way I've always done it. And it makes sense to me, but if you don't feel like doing it like that and you don't feel like it, you know, lends anything to your work, then don't bother doing it. So I've snipped it off at about 1 centimeter. And I'm just gonna kind of shape this around. And these are basic bead links, which, like I had mentioned, you could just take these and open up the loops or join them with a jump ring and just make something entirely out of these guys here. And that would be perfectly good. Now on this one, I'm going to try to kind of intentionally not mess up, but just do it less than ideal. So let's do, now on these ones also, you want to keep in mind, you want it to be able to fit over the end of the charm that we're going to be incorporating, and that's why I'm making them as large as they are. You could always make them a little bit smaller by just bringing your pliers closer to the tip. I don't recommend doing it less than like 7 millimeters, because it's going to have a really hard time, like I'll just show you, it's going to have a really hard time getting around your pliers. So that one, typically you're not going to need a loop smaller than that when you're making a link. But, you know, don't take my word for it. Experiment and find what you like best for you. that off to the side. Now, if you bend too much, and you're coming around and you're like, oh, I bent too much. And it looks kind of wonky like that. What I would do, oops, is throw my pliers on the floor, because that's how I get stuff done. But no, is I would just come in and I want to trim off, kind of eyeball it. Like, you can almost compare it to the amount of space that it needs to come in. I would just snip off about 2 millimeters. And so now that opened me up a little bit of space that I can now come around and bring that to there. Now we'll just bring this up. And the reason why I do the 90-degree bend first is if we came in and just snipped a little over a centimeter from the end and then grabbed it with our pliers and started to shape it in, you're going to end up with a very off to the side loop, and that can affect the way that things hang and drape. It might not matter as much in a bracelet or a necklace, but if you're making earrings out of this, this is going to hang kind of funny. So a way to fix that would be to hold it, gonna zoom in, hold your pliers like this and kind of bend it back and then bring it down some more. So it's still not as crisp and tidy as if you had done the bend originally, but it's certainly better than if you didn't. So now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the loop this way. You don't ever want to pull it open, like wrench it out to try to make it straight again, because that's going to bend your wire all up and it's not going to have a nice even curve. It's also going to make some brittle points. So that's sitting there open, and I'm just going to hook on this charm and wiggle it closed, because the goal here is you want there to be enough room for some wiggle and movement for the charm. That way your bracelet doesn't like get caught up on itself. And then I'm going to come to the other loop, and I'm going to open it, and if I were attaching 2 links, I'd just hook it on like that and then close it. And there you, all you had to buy was some beads, bead caps, and wire. But whenever you're threading beads on, you want to make sure that they're both facing the same way, because this just doesn't look as nice. How did a mosquito get in here? Dang it. Sorry, apparently I'm delicious. So I'm just going to hook it on like that. Come in here with my bent nose pliers, because I like to be able to just grab it right at that angle. Oops. I'm sorry, again, looking through the camera perspective really gets my depth perception all wonky. So now we're just going to kind of wiggle that shut. Just like that. So that's how it's sitting. And we're going to do that same thing until we've strung our entire bracelet or necklace, or, you know, whatever you're making. So there we go. It's just coming along nicely. And now I'm attaching my last one. And these are something that your first couple might be kind of wonky, but you'll start to get the hang of it. So there's that. That's the full length, and you can make it to fit whatever size wrist that you would like. I like my bracelets a little loose, so this actually fits me pretty well. So from here, I'm actually going to come through, oops, with my bent nose and flat nose pliers, and I'm going to open 2 of my jump rings, and then I'm going to close 2 of my jump rings. And whenever you close them, you again want to make sure that that loop is nice and just perfectly brought together. And then I'm just going to sit it right there on our open ring, just like that. And then I'm going to take our ring and I'm going to close it just like that. And I'm going to set it right there. And so now we'll take this, the one open with one closed on it, and just hook it right onto our project. And close it. And I'm going to pick up that ring and I'm going to hook it on and I'm going to close it. So from there, that gives me something adjustable to hook to. And what I mean by that is we're going to make our own clasp. Now with this one, again, I'm working off the spool, and I feel like this really helps me save on my scrap wire. It might just be, you know, millimeters or fractions of an inch at times. Bless you, puppy. But that stuff adds up. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our wire as close to the tip of the pliers and as close to the tip of the wire as we can. Bless you. And I'm going to fold it around, like loop it around until it's this little like J or candy cane or hook or just however. And I'm going to come into the box hinge of my box jaw on my pliers and squish it down. Just nice like that. And now I'm going to grip that right here in my pliers, and I'm going to bend it around into a nice little shepherd's hook. Whomp. And now I'm going to trim with my wire snips about an inch beyond the tip. Not an inch, a centimeter. One is something. So now you can see it's sitting like this. And again, I want a little bit of an S hook, so I'm going to grip it on this end, right in line with that little notch, because I like my loops to be consistent, and I'm just going to bring it around like that. And so now we have a nice little clasp. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it just like if it were a jump ring. Bless you, puppy. I don't know what my dog's allergic to. He's probably sucking gnats up his nose. They're everywhere in here right now. And I'm going to put on my charm, and I'm going to close that. Make sure it's nice and stable. And so now, whenever you follow the length of your bracelet around, you can hook your little clasp, just like that. And if you want your bracelet to stay extra secure, you can just kind of squeeze down with your fingers just a little bit to close that gap. So you can still get it on and off, but it's not nearly as open and floppy. So just like that. Hey everybody, thanks so much for hanging out with me while I showed y'all how to make this bracelet. This is one of an infinite, endless possibility of things that you could make. These are just some of the charms that I had, and some of the beads, and some of the bead caps. Usually whenever I'm making inventory for in the booth, I'll take a design like this and make it in a bunch of different bead or gemstone colors, because you never know what somebody might like whenever they come through the booth to buy something. Then it's also, if I made everything in my favorite colors, they'd all be like basically peacock and rainbow and like a bunch of different like my favorite colors. So I try to make stuff that might not be my favorite, but it might be your favorite. So if you have any questions, comments, or ideas, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment down below. If you enjoy my free tutorials and would, these bugs drive me crazy. I love nature and all, but stay out of my house. Sorry. If you enjoy my free tutorials and would like to support the creation of more of them, please check me out on Patreon, which this project, or one very similar to it, is something that whenever you become a patron on my level 1 kits, you'd get stuff to make things like this. You know, that everything would be in the kit to make the complete project. So it's great for like beginner, or if you just want to get your hands wet, or maybe get your hands on some beads or gemstones or charms that you might not have had access to. I think it's fun. So, but yeah, if you are interested in becoming a patron, just links down in the video description below, and there'll be something popping up on the screen on one of the sides where you can go and watch a video where I talk much more in depth specifically about Patreon and everything that we do there. But I really appreciate it. I really appreciate y'all. Thanks for stopping in and hanging out with me. I hope that this was helpful to you. And if you want to share pictures of what you made, my social media, our links are down below. You can put it on my wall on Facebook or tag me on Instagram. I love getting to see what y'all make. You guys do so good. But yeah, I'm gonna go to bed. I'll talk to y'all later. Happy crafting and have an excellent time. I'll see y'all around. Bye. I think I just ate a bug.